So we are shedding 2025 and we are headed into 2026. And for the last few months, fans have not been happy with Triple H's booking. Fans feel like SmackDown and Raw have been a little flat. Sometimes we get a good show, sometimes we get a bad show, and they were not really happy with the PLE, or the PLEs, I should say, in regards to Survivor Series being one of the major ones, and WrestlePalooza. Now, fans have voiced their dislike online on social media, also on YouTube, and guys creating a few videos just talking about this particular topic. But it actually came to a head at John Cena's Last Time Is Now goodbye show at Saturday night's main event, where John Cena would wrestle for the last time and he would tap out, and fans would tell Triple H that he effed up. He screwed up on the booking by having or even allowing John Cena to tap out. When he was Mr. Never Give Up, he gave up in his last match. Fans, or I should say, some fans could not see the poetic ending in regards to how John Cena went out. Some fans appreciated it, some fans didn't. Some fans see how it benefited another superstar in the likes of Gunther being a mega heel, and some fans didn't see it that way. How the fans feel about the booking and how they're going back and forth in regards to whether Triple H is the right fit for the job. Fans are questioning that, when initially in the beginning, fans were very happy with Triple H's booking because Triple H has brought us some good things as a booker. He's made a lot of way and opportunity for women and the women's division to win championships like the United States Championship, the Intercontinental Championship, and the Women's North American Championship for NXT. And then also, we've gotten the return of CM Punk, and as a bonus, AJ Lee as well. We've also received Cody Rhodes going up against Roman Reigns when he actually took the place of The Rock, because The Rock was supposed to wrestle Roman Reigns as the head of the table at WrestleMania 41. But fans went online and social media and they voiced their displeasure, and Triple H heard our cry and he responded to it and gave us Cody Rhodes. We've also got another championship reign from the likes of John Cena, and an Intercontinental title reign from the likes of John Cena, who has never won an Intercontinental Championship in his illustrious career as being the major franchise player. Fans seem to look back at Triple H's story arc with Booker T, where he was degrading and throwing a dollar bill into Booker T's face, telling him to clean a toilet bowl with the commode, and telling him that he has nappy hair and do a little spinneroonie, which was very racist. And fans look at this controversial angle and deems Triple H as a racist for taking on this storyline. And fans felt like Booker T was buried at WrestleMania because Triple H hit Booker T with the pedigree. It took him a very long time to cover him. And then when he covered him, he got the pin, and Booker T didn't kick out. And they felt like that was a burial to say, Negro, stay in your place. Also, fans seem to keep bringing up China and how Triple H had his relationship with China and how it all ended, and how Triple H went on to marry the boss's daughter, Stephanie McMahon, who he fell in love with. And they look at how China was handled, pushed to the side, and how her life turned out, going into adult films, getting on drugs, and dying prematurely. And for some reason, Triple H's love life and a story arc that WWE created seems to come into play and to question Triple H's character as being a top booker. And people like to bring this up for some odd reason and think this has something to do with Triple H's booking. I urge you guys to just take the time to stick it out with me in regards to this video as I begin to break these things down. I guarantee you I will present some information to you guys that will make you see things a little bit more fairly in regards to what we've seen, what we witnessed, and what we actually know, but we've never really put together. I want to talk about it. You want to talk about it. Everybody keeps talking about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Whistling in the rain, thoughts that always bring. Talking all about the moves in our grooves. Wrestling talks and thoughts we never forgot. Slamming down the truth in our booth. Conversations in the air with flair and care. Legends of the past, memories that last. Wrestling talks and thoughts, connecting the dots. From high flyer to submissions, we make our missions. From Raw to SmackDown, we wear the crown. NXT to AEW, we bring the view. Wrestling talks and thoughts in our slots. Fans united, always excited. Wrestling talks and thoughts in our spots.
All right, so here's this running theme that Triple H had this very controversial storyline with Booker T years ago. And he had his reign of terror with the World's Heavyweight Championship. He degraded and disrespected Booker T on national TV. Now, as an African-American man, I could definitely say what he did and what was going on was quite racist and quite controversial. And Booker T goes on to wrestle Triple H at WrestleMania, and a lot of fans thought that this angle was going to lead to Booker T having his first World Heavyweight Championship run in WWE, but it didn't. It led to Booker T being, as some fans would call, buried, right? And it wasn't just the fact that the story arc took place in regards to Triple H acting quite racist towards Booker T, but it was more so the fact of how Booker T really lost. He would take a pedigree. It would take Triple H 5 minutes to cover him. And then after he covers him, well, not 5 minutes, but it took a very long time. I mean, you probably could have ate a bag of Doritos in between the time it took Triple H to cover him. But whatever, I'm just joking around. But it took quite a long time to pin Booker T, and Booker T didn't even kick out, and the match was over. And fans felt like that was a burial for Booker T. There was no revenge. There was no get back for Booker T. He would go on to actually win a World's Heavyweight Championship. Now, to get into whether this actually plays into Triple H's booking decisions in regards to him being a good booker, does it? That's the question I have to ask you guys. Does it really play into Triple H's decision making? You guys could drop a comment in the comment section below as I begin to break this down. Now, as we would look at the story between Triple H and Booker T, the first thing we have to look at is the fact that this was an actual story. It was a story arc. It was a script. And a lot of fans seem to forget that this is a script that's handed to the performers, or a story arc that's presented to the likes of Triple H and Booker T, and these guys would have to agree to do these story arcs, right? This is not something that necessarily Triple H picked out or even Booker T, but something that Vince McMahon would get from his writing team, and they would present it to the two performers. Booker T knew this, and so did Triple H. These guys agreed to it. We understand that wrestling is predetermined, which I find to be quite silly is because fans keep pointing this out and putting all the blame on Triple H, as he is considered the scapegoat in this particular situation. And none of this gets thrown back on Vince McMahon or his writing team for even bringing this as an idea to present on live TV, right? Fans felt like it would have been more justified if Booker T would have won the match, but because he didn't win the match at WrestleMania, it seems like it was just made to humiliate African Americans on live TV. The whole purpose of it was really to give Triple H more heel heat because they were making him a big heel at the time, and he is and was a mega heel. But the point I want to drill into is the fact that it was a story arc. It was a story. Now, don't take it from my perspective, but take it from Booker T's perspective. If you guys want to know more information about this, you guys can look up Booker T's response to this whole entire situation. He actually spoke on it on his podcast, and he said, as I said, it's a story. He said, guys, it's a story. The whole point was to pull and get an emotional reaction from you guys, which is what it did, and the job was done. Booker T said he sees himself or seen himself as a character in the story, only playing a part, and him and Triple H are actually good friends. Now, some people look at this and say, you know what? That's BS. That's nonsense. Triple H is not Triple H. It's Triple K, right? And I keep seeing that as a comment from some fans trying to deem him as being racist and say, well, you seen what Triple H did to Booker T on live TV. You seen what Triple H did. And again, as I said before, Triple H gets treated like the scapegoat, not the writing team and not Vince McMahon for actually giving a thumbs up on this whole complete story arc. The whole point is that these are characters playing a story. Like if you guys were to go to the movies and watch a movie like 12 Years a Slave, uh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But if you guys went to the movies to watch a movie like The Matrix or watch a movie like It or watch, Friday the 13th or you guys will watch a movie like Mission Impossible. These are people who are playing characters, and fans keep forgetting that wrestling is sports and entertainment. And at the time, it was considered sports and entertainment, and that's what they were trying to provide for you, some type of entertainment or a story that would provoke some kind of reaction out of you to hate Triple H even the more, because that's the kind of heel he was supposed to be. You wasn't supposed to cheer for him. You wasn't supposed to like him. You were supposed to hate him because he's made to get the big baby face over. That's the point. And to make more baby faces. The bigger the heel, the more baby faces can be made out of that heel. And that's what fans keep missing in regards to Triple H's character. But I'm going to get more into that when it comes to Gunther and John Cena a little bit later in the video. But we're going to stick on this particular topic in regards to Triple H being somewhat racist and people using that whole story arc as a means to point out why he is, because of what he did in regards to that story. Even though Booker T came out and said that him and Triple H are friends, let's dig a little further. Triple H would form Evolution, and part of that group of Evolution would be a member by the name of Batista, right? And Batista, a few years later, will go on to become world's heavyweight champion. And we all know that Triple H and Batista are good friends. Now, as Batista would be world heavyweight champion, Booker T and Batista would be at a photo shoot. And this story takes place in that particular scenery. They're at a photo shoot, taking photos for their next event, and Batista would take longer than usual. Booker T would politely go over to Batista and say, "Hey, man, you're taking a little bit too long. Me and my wife, we have to go because there's a show tonight and we need to go get ready. And we don't have enough time. And I just want to do my quick shots and leave." And Batista would throw a hissy fit, throw an attitude. Batista and Booker T will go back and forth to the point where Batista says to Booker T, "Hey, you want to go in the room and we can handle this like men?" And Booker T said, "No problem with me." And as the two gentlemen would proceed to go into the room and handle this matter like two gentlemen that they are, Booker T would proceed to lay the Harlem Heat on your boy Batista. He would lay the five fingers of death on Batista.
Batista just got knocked, slapped the hell out. That's what just happened. Batista is down. Batista is down. Batista is down.
We got to take another look. Ladies and gentlemen, watch this impact. Batista crashing through the table. And lastly, just pointed down at Finlay and said, "Listen, Batista's out of the equation. Let's get it on now."
For sure, Michael. We don't know who's going to win. We know who's not going to win. Batista is unconscious.
Batista is down.
But you still got to focus, King, on what's happening in the ring.
Batista is down.
Lastly, and Finlay, the winner here.
Batista is down.
Next week.
Put the animal on a leash, knock him out, lay him out, and they had to wake up your boy Batista because Booker T hands was too fast for Batista, and he knocked him out. He beat him up, right? Now, you would think that after Booker T would beat up Batista or have this feud with Batista or have this fight with Batista, you would think that because Triple H having the power and the pull backstage, he would politic and get Booker T out of the company. No, that's not what happened. Actually, a few months later, Booker T would wind up winning the world's heavyweight championship. Now, you have to ask yourself this question. Why didn't Booker T get fired if Triple H was supposedly trying to be so racist towards Booker T a few years prior, right? Now, fast forward a few more years, Booker T would actually go down to NXT, which is Triple H's baby, and he is now currently serving as a commentator at NXT. And Booker T actually prefers to be in NXT because it presents him with a lighter schedule, lighter travel, and he prefers it a lot better because he can spend more time with his family and do all the other things that he likes to do on the side. And why Why would Triple H allow someone he deems as not being good enough or deems as someone he doesn't respect as a counterpart? Why would he allow him to go to NXT and host or commentate his baby? Why didn't Triple H politic his way into getting Booker T fired after having a squabble with Batista? After putting the beats on Batista, he put the beats on him like Dr. Dre headphones. But why didn't Triple H politic to get Booker T out of the company? That's the question you guys got to ask yourself. So as you guys look at that whole angle that Triple H had with Booker T, you got to ask yourself, they had that racist angle. Booker T beat up his best friend or beat up one of his good friends. And then Booker T still gets a world title reign. He doesn't get buried. And then he actually goes on to commentate for NXT for the last, 4 or 5 years? I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years. You guys got to ask yourself that question. All right. Drop a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think about this information. This information is actually privy to you guys. You guys can look up the story with Batista versus Booker T, the fight that these guys had. It's a rumor. It's very true. And Booker T actually confirmed it. All right. Moving on to scandals. Mr. Scandal himself, Mr. Triple H, wants to get busy with Stephanie McMahon. He got busy with Stephanie McMahon and he dropped China like a bad habit. And I've seen people make videos and talk about, hey, Triple H, you screwed China. And if you see how Triple H treated China, you can definitely expect Triple H to treat the talent the same way. And it's just silly. It almost reminds me of Bret Hart just sitting there nitpicking and trying to find every little reason to blame or to pinpoint why you don't like somebody when you don't really have a valid reason. It's just that you just don't agree with their decision. If you don't agree with their decision, just say that as a man. And just because that person is not good friends with you doesn't make them a horrible person. It's just that you and that person didn't connect. But just don't try to find every reason to try to not like somebody. It's just silly. And that's what it reminds me of when it comes to Triple H and China. Now, Triple H and China some years ago was dating. You guys know the story. They were dating in the WWE. And as they were dating and they were together, they bought this big house together. They had plans to get married. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon wound up actually hitting it off. And they grew strong feelings for each other during a storyline and working with each other and realized that they had good chemistry, but that they were, compatible for each other. And the relationship went left with Triple H when China started to find voicemails and notes and letters that Stephanie McMahon wrote to Triple H, and that these guys were having somewhat of an affair behind China's back. Now, it's not considered really an affair. They were just, Triple H was just cheating on his, at that time, live-in girlfriend, because Triple H and China, as far as I understood, were not really engaged. They had plans to get married. And Triple H heart was somewhere else, and that's in regards to Stephanie McMahon. So some people may say, how convenient. It's the boss's daughter that he fell in love with. But you guys have to look at the whole picture, is the fact that Stephanie McMahon fell in love with Triple H as well. It wasn't Triple H went and put some voodoo spell on Stephanie McMahon, or he cut off some chicken heads and sacrificed somebody's child, to some deity or some false deity or some pagan deity in order to win over Stephanie McMahon's love and affection. That's not what happened. For some reason, people look at Triple H as being the scapegoat to blame why China's life fell into shambles after they broke up. Now, after they actually broke up, things kind of went left for China. Well, things didn't kind of, but they really did go left for China. But some of those decisions, I should say most of those decisions that were made in regards to why her life went left later after she left the WWE, all falls on to China. Now, we have to give China that accountability. No disrespect to her life in regards to her as a performer. China was one of my favorite female performers, if not probably like top 2. But I have to look at, and we have to look at as adults, the decisions we make as adults. Getting on drugs and doing adult films is completely your decision. Now, I understand heartbreak can lead you down a dark path, but at the same time, there are healthy support systems that we do have around each other. And also, we need to be considerate of our decision making as adults. Now, people try to blame Triple H for the decisions that China made in regards to where her life went. We can't blame him for that. However, what we can blame Triple H for is the fact that he did break China's heart, and Triple H is held accountable for that. And I'm quite sure that Triple H has apologized to her when they broke up and when they went their separate ways. And China even mentioned that Triple H apologized to her. But of course, when your heart is being broken right in front of you, apology sounds like nothing. Triple H has a love life. He has a personal life as a person and as a human. And a lot of people, you know, and I know, have been through similar situations where we know someone who's had a girlfriend or a boyfriend that they've been living with for some years. And then the relationship could be a little bit tumultuous, but we don't know all of the details of the relationship. And we don't know the hearts of those people. And when it comes to those type of feelings, sometimes the person that you could be in a relationship with see you as just a good companion, but not a long-term companion. And that could have been Triple H's heart at that time. But this is girl and boy stuff. Like, this is relationship stuff that everybody has been through. But what makes it silly is the fact that people keep looking at Triple H's love life with China and try to attribute that to his booking and say, hey, this guy right here did China dirty. So what do you think he's going to do to the talent? And that's completely silly, because the question is what the hell does that have to do with Triple H's booking? Absolutely nothing. His love life is his love life, just like your love life is your love life and mine is mine. And that's completely personal. But if our love life does interfere with our work, then that becomes a problem. And some people do look at the fact that it was the boss's daughter, and that could have interfered with China's career. And that did interfere with China's career, because the boss was like, hey, this female who's like 5'10" and weighs 210 pounds of muscle, I don't want to see her beating on my daughter. That's the last thing I want to see her do. So I got to get you out of here. And the rumor is that that's the reason why Vince McMahon fired China, is because he didn't want China assaulting Stephanie McMahon. He didn't want, China putting a backbreaker on Stephanie McMahon. So he was like, we got to get out of here. And that was the reason why China was fired. But however, the fact that China's career fell into that dark hole is not something that we can necessarily blame on Triple H, because her taking drugs and her going to adult films was strictly and purely her choice. She was still a celebrity. She could have done other things for money as a celebrity. She was, in fact, the most popular female wrestler in the world at that time. The reason why she went into adult entertainment is because she had a tape that was leaked out with her and Mr. X-Pac, Mr. Nasty, Mr. He liked to do a little bit of in the ring, but he also wanted to do a little with China, right? So he did that with China in that video. But don't go watch it, but it's out there. I'm not gonna tell you the name of the video. You don't need to know if you're young and you're watching this. Don't be nasty. But nonetheless, so what happened was she brokered a deal with an adult entertainment distributor to not only distribute the content, but also star in some additional content as well. That was China's choice. That had nothing to do with Triple H. But fans, for some reason, think that his whole relationship with China has something to do with his booking, and it has absolutely nothing to do with his booking, and it's stupid and it's silly. Moving on to Triple H's booking, right? Let's move on to Triple H's booking, right? And before I mention Triple H's whole angle with Booker T and how people see him as racist, right? And or some people are trying to say he's racist, right? Because he doesn't know how to book talent. And he was actually asked this question at a press conference, and he says, I don't see race. He said, I don't see gender. He said, all I see is talent. Does Triple H see race? And does Triple H see talent? Is that true about Triple H? Well, let's talk about it, right? Swerve Strickland was a competitor who, at some point, could be deemed to be someone who could have been a big superstar in WWE. But did Triple H acknowledge that? Did he see that? Well, Triple H was running NXT from 2010 to 2021. And Swerve Strickland was one of his African American champions that he booked to win the North American title before he was called up to the main roster. Now, he was called up to the main roster, and sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's a bad thing. But I believe it was a good thing that Swerve Strickland was sent up to the main roster was because Swerve Strickland was somebody that I believe Triple H seen as somebody who belonged on a bigger stage versus being down at NXT, and that his group presented something that was a lot more relatable to the youth, and that was something that Vince McMahon could mold into being something bigger. But we all know how Vince McMahon handled a lot of the NXT talent. Not saying that Triple H threw Swerve Strickland away, but Triple H did acknowledge his skill and his ability and his talent because he made him North American champion. Now, if Triple H didn't give him any championship or give him anything, you could say or even bring up a valid argument that, hey, maybe Triple H was just overlooking Strickland completely. But the fact of the matter is, he was sent up to the main roster after being North American champion and was sent in front of a bigger crowd instead of a smaller crowd with NXT. Swerve Strickland is just one part of the discussion. And I don't expect Triple H to acknowledge or see the skill and the ability and the star power in every wrestler that comes across them. You know, sometimes he gets it, sometimes he don't. Even Triple H said this himself. He said he didn't see the same thing in John Cena. He said, sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. And we can't sit there and get mad at Triple H for sometimes not acknowledging or recognizing some of the talent and skill and star power in certain performers. But Triple H has. And to Triple H's credit, let's look at his booking in NXT compared to Vincent Kennedy McMahon. All right. So what I did was I did like a little deep dive and I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to look at Triple H's booking of African American talent compared to Vince McMahon. And this is only based off of world heavyweight champions. This is not about women's champions. This is not about North American champions or intercontinental champions. This is only based on world heavyweight champions because those are the people we consider stars. Not to say that the African American women world champions are not stars or they can't be stars, but I just want to focus on this because I feel like this kind of drills in the point a lot more stronger. Pause. Right? So Vince McMahon would run WWE from 1989 all the way to 2024 for 42 years. So Triple H would run NXT from 2010 all the way to 2021 for 11 years, right? Now, compared to Vince McMahon's booking of African American talent to win World Heavyweight Gold, men's gold, and Triple H's booking of African American males to win heavyweight gold, let's see how they compare. Right? So let's start with Vince McMahon. So Vince McMahon's first African American champion was The Rock in 1998 at Survivor Series. It would be 16 years until Vince McMahon would actually book an African American male to win a World's Heavyweight Championship. It was in 2012 that Triple H would book Big E to win the NXT World's Heavyweight Championship. And he would be the first African American male, as I said, but he would be the second champion to win the NXT Championship. That would be after Seth Rollins, and that would be in the establishment of the NXT Heavyweight Championship. Because prior to 2012, from 2010 all the way to 2012, they didn't have an NXT Championship. They just ran tournaments and just had development and then try to send them up to the main roster. But Triple H wanted to have championships. He wanted to establish NXT as an actual brand. But it was in 2012 that NXT would have their first championship belt, men's championship belt, and Seth Rollins would be the first and Big E would be the second. So it would take Vince McMahon 16 years to acknowledge when he should put or even decide to put the belt on an African American uh, performer, and it would take Triple H less than a year after actually having a championship belt to award an African American male or any other performer, right? It would take Triple H less than a year. After The Rock, let's see how Triple H and how Vince McMahon compare into booking African American performers with championships and recognizing and acknowledging their talent, right? So, as I said before, it would take Vince McMahon 16 years to finally book an African American as a champion, which would be in The Rock in 1998 at Survivor Series. And then after The Rock, you had Booker T, which was in 2006, and that would be 8 years after The Rock. And then after Booker T, you would have Mark Henry, and he would win a championship in 2011. That would be 5 years after Booker T. And after Mark Henry, you would have Kofi Kingston. He would win a championship in 2019, and that would be 8 years after Mark Henry. And after Kofi Kingston, you would have Bobby Lashley, who would win a championship in 2021. That would be 2 years after Kofi Kingston. And after Bobby Lashley, you would have Big E, who would win a championship in 2021. That would be 6 months after Bobby Lashley. And after Big E, you would have 3 years later, our last African American champion, Cody Rhodes, in 2024. You have Cody Rhodes as the African American champion. Melanin is in his soul. I don't know if you guys see that video.
Wrestling has more than one black champion. There's melanin in his soul. Negro icon Cody Rhodes, doing it for the culture machine. When blacks are down, Cody's there, and he knows how to bring hair. The thing he puts his kid in regularly is cornrows. His father said, blacker the berry, the sweeter is the juice. When it took a week's for championship away, I felt defeated. But then when Cody won, those feelings went away. Those thoughts were heated. Cody, my heroes, one of my favorite heroes. Where Cody starts races a man's Wakanda's leader.
Cody Rhodes. He's the last African American champion. Anyway, but the last African American champion we would get would be Bobby Lashley. And that's Vince McMahon's booking. So we would get a total of 6 African American champions or black champions in regards to Vince McMahon booking talent, right? And he would acknowledge that 16 years later, right? Now let's look at Triple H's booking, right? Now, Triple H, having ran NXT from 2010 all the way to 2021 before he would go over to the main roster and be deemed as the head booker. His first African American champion that he would book at NXT would be Big E. Big E would become NXT's first African American champion in 2012. This would be 2 years after Triple H was running NXT, and he would be Triple H's second champion, right? And after Big E, it would be 8 years later that we would get Keith Lee in 2020. This would be 8 years later. And after Keith Lee, we would get Melo Hayes. So Keith Lee would be the second African American champion in 2020. That would be 8 years later after Big E won the NXT Heavyweight Championship. Not only was Keith Lee the second African American champion, but he was also the first person in NXT to hold on to 2 titles simultaneously. That would be the North American Championship and the NXT Heavyweight Championship after beating Adam Cole and breaking his historical 460 something day title reign with the NXT Heavyweight Championship. No other NXT superstar would do what Keith Lee did until 5 years later in the likes of Stephanie Vakir, who would have the Women's North American title, will go on to win the Women's North American Heavyweight Championship. And she would win that in 2025. And she would be the second person to Keith Lee to hold on to two NXT championships simultaneously. Then we have Melo Hayes in 2023, who will be our third African American champion in NXT. But by that time, Triple H had already ascended to the main roster to be the head booker. But we only got two African American champions while Triple H was the head booker of NXT. So if you look at Triple H's booking compared to Vince McMahon, right? And now Shawn Michaels is now booking NXT. And after Triple H's departure, we will actually get three more African American males that will become NXT World Heavyweight Champions. That's Melo Hayes in 2023. That's Trick Williams in 2024. He would win the Men's World Heavyweight Championship twice. And we have Obafemi in 2025 currently, and he would win the Men's NXT World Heavyweight Championship twice as well. So in such a short time, do you see that in NXT, talent is being recognized, whether African American or whether any other ethnicity, right? Because there have been people of other ethnicities in NXT that have held on to the title, men's heavyweight title, aside from African Americans like Shinsuke Nakamura being one, Samoa Joe being another. And then also you have Andrade Siamis, right? Who was a WWE NXT heavyweight champion. But nonetheless, now the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I want you guys to see how long it took Vince McMahon to acknowledge that an African American or there's African Americans on his roster that deserve a chance versus Triple H. How long it took him to acknowledge there's African American males on the roster that deserve a fair chance and a fair shot, and whether he sees that talent or not, right? So when you look at the ratio, and if my Steiner math serves me correctly, right? I'm going to do a little bit of Steiner math on this one. I've been practicing. I've been brushing up on my Steiner math, right? If you look at the ratio in regards to being booked by Vince McMahon versus being booked by Triple H, with Triple H, you'd more than likely have a 30 to 45% chance of becoming a champion versus Vince McMahon, you more than likely have a 10 to 5% chance of being booked as a world heavyweight champion. So if you add Triple H's 45% and Vince McMahon's 10% all together, you can have 155% chance of being booked as champion. I know the ratio. 10% and 45% will give you 55% if you combine them. But in my personal opinion, with Vince McMahon, I think you have a 10% chance out of 100% chance of becoming a champion. And I think with Triple H, you have more of a 45% chance. I said 30 to 45%, but honestly, I think it's more of a 45% chance because you can see that he was actually looking and acknowledging African-American talent. I mean, Velveteen Dream did become North American champion, and he was placed in heavyweight NXT championship pictures. But as I said before, because of the scandal, they couldn't do nothing with him, right? They didn't want that smudge and smear on their name, and they had to release him as talent. But Big E, Keith Lee, Obafemi, Trick Williams, Melo Hayes, those guys have been pushed and have been prompted up as up-and-coming African-American talent that can be booked properly. Now, some of you guys already know that Melo Hayes won a United States title. It was said a few weeks ago that Melo was being buried by Ilya Dragunov because Melo Hayes didn't win the United States title. Now, before we get into Melo winning the United States title and fans saying that Triple H doesn't know how to recognize African-American talent, now in regards to Triple H booking and acknowledging African-American talent, Carmelo Hayes is now our United States champion. Now, a few months ago, people were getting mad because Melo lost a match against Ilya Dragunov, and they felt like Ilya Dragunov should have lost and Melo should have been the United States champion. Now, my argument with that is that's not fair to Ilya Dragunov because he didn't even hold the belt for even a month. Yo, we need to have these storylines and these characters be fully developed before we start putting gold on them. Now, when I look at Ilya Dragunov actually had less time on TV than Melo Hayes. And I think the reason why Ilya Dragunov got the United States title is because of him being sidelined from an injury and him being an excellent performer. He put in great work in NXT. If you guys don't know, now you know, and you should check out Ilya Dragunov's work in NXT. He had a lot of great matches, and some of those great matches, and I should say 3 classic matches he had was with Gunther himself when Gunther was called Walter. It's not fair to Ilya Dragunov to just have the title for just a short period of time and then drop it off to Melo just because fans feel like he should just have it because he's black and black talent don't get pushed on the main roster because they believe that Triple H is racist. That's silly and it's stupid. And I felt like that was a dumb argument for people to even bring up. Now that you know that Melo is the United States champion and he has been booked to win, and he is now our United States champion. What do you guys have to say about that in regards to Triple H's booking? I would like to know, is Triple H still Triple KKK? Now, when Obafemi wins the World's Heavyweight Championship and more than likely probably beats Cody, or he might beat Gunther for the World's Heavyweight Championship, whether it's the Undisputed Championship or the World's Heavyweight Championship, either one, whatever one. What are you guys going to say then? Are you guys still going to call Triple H racist? Or are you guys still going to carry on that same notion and use this story arc and this script that was written for Triple H and Booker T in the past to now, put that on Triple H? What's going to be the argument there? What's going to be the clickbait at that point, right? So I think it's very stupid and very dumb. I actually had this video created months before, but I kept redoing it because more information kept coming to me, and I just wanted to do it right to nail down the points so that you guys can see exactly what's going on, and the fact that a lot of fans keep creating clickbait and keep making videos that sound stupid and ignorant when they don't do their due diligence to gather all the correct data and information to really compare what Triple H has done over the history based upon their feelings and based upon what they want. Which leads me to LA Knight. A lot of fans want LA Knight to be booked as a major competitor and be someone that's in the World's Heavyweight Championship picture. But people also want Drew McIntyre to get a world's title reign. But people also want Roman Reigns to get a world's title reign. And then there's some of us, like myself, that wants Gunther to get a world's title reign and Jey Uso to get a world's title reign. With all these people and all these fans feeling like all these guys should get a world title reign, there's only 2 world heavyweight championships. And how we get our favorite competitor to that world heavyweight championship is great booking, good story, and a story arc that makes sense for this person to hold on to a world's title. We also need the right opposition as to who they're going to face to make a compelling story and an argument to why they should win this title off of this person who they're facing. We need to have someone that is credible in the eyes of the fans that we can consistently cheer for. Now, I know fans feel like LA Knight is the guy that should be in that picture. And trust me, as I said before in my last videos, you guys have to wait. Just be patient. I said it before in my last video that LA Knight is someone that WWE is going to make and create big plans for. I can see it based upon how they're booking him. And guess what happened? Articles begin to surface and people begin to see and acknowledge that LA Knight is being booked to be that returning star that's going to come back and get this mega pop, and they're going to build strongly for someone to be in a world's title picture. But WWE needs to book LA Knight in a way where they can get us emotionally invested into the character, to not just make it a fly-by-night moment. Because if they book LA Knight too strong, too soon, and too quick, we may just revolt against him. We may say, you know what? Maybe this is a mistake, just like Jey Uso. WWE does not want to make the same mistake they made with LA Knight the same way they made with Jey Uso. And that was an incredible fumble, not on WWE's behalf, but on the fans' behalf. That was on our behalf, because a lot of fans went online and started putting a lot of thumbs down on Jey Uso's Royal Rumble win because they felt like John Cena should have won again. And fans felt like Gunther should have not been beaten the way that he was beaten by Jey Uso, who is somebody who they think was not credible enough to beat Gunther. I mean, well, who's credible enough, right? The person who becomes credible enough to beat the opposition that we want them to beat is based upon how much we like them and how over they are with the fans. Jey Uso was still over with the fans. He's still selling a lot of merch, but it's sad because he was pushed to a position that everybody wanted for him for like a whole year. And I'm talking about 2024, where fans was in love with Jay, to now fans feeling like they can't stand Jay, or fans feeling like the yeeting is now becoming annoying. And it's stupid because it's crowd engagement. It's what keeps the audience hyped, and it's what keeps us entertained, and it's part of entertainment. Seth Rollins has the whoa, oh. No one's complaining about that being annoying. So I seen this podcast with Steven Richards, and he was on there with his co-host. And his co-host was just saying how he was getting tired of Jey Uso coming out and doing the whole yeeting thing. But you don't say nothing about the fans saying the whole, sing along with Seth slogan to do the whole thing. Like, I don't see him talking about about him getting tired of fans yelling OTC every time Roman Reigns come out. It's just stupid stuff that people say that annoys me. And then when they go into talking about booking and how certain performers should be booked and how WWE makes mistakes with certain booking, and I just listen to their point of view, and I'm just like, this is the reason why, like, guys like you would have worked well with Vince McMahon in the late 2000s when he was doing crappy booking, like, just booking this one guy to win all the time just because it just made you feel good and because a guy had a slogan, and just missing the whole major point in the regards to that characters need to be built and we need to have some drama so that we have a compelling story to make it interesting to watch. But this is all due to Triple H's booking. Good booking, because he gave us the Jey Uso push that we were all clamoring for. We wanted him to win Money in the Bank. But then when he finally wins the Rumble, fans get mad and fans do the total opposite. And just like him, if I was booking Jey to win the Rumble, I would have been just as confused as he probably was when fans said they didn't like it, because that's what fans said that they wanted. But I guess fans were mad because it was at the expense of John Cena, who wins everything. On to John Cena, who wins everything, right? So if John Cena would have won against Gunther, that would have damaged Gunther's character as being strong. It wouldn't have made Gunther feel and look credible. And not only that, but John Cena is not wrestling anymore. Why did he need to win? To go out strong because he has a mantra, don't give up. And he finally gave up. He finally gave up because he was giving up his career. He was giving up being a performer. He was giving up everything. That was the whole point. It was that he was done. His time is over. That was the complete ending of John Cena's story. And it needed to be that way. Not John Cena going out with the victory for what? Just to bury a superstar to be on top, which he was doing before in the early 2000s. Why? It doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't benefit anybody else on the roster. It would have just made Gunther look weak. And if Gunther would have went up against the likes of someone like Brock Lesnar or someone like the likes of AJ Styles, no one would deem him credible because he tapped out to Jey Uso and he lost to John Cena. You guys ever think about that? No one thinks about that. No, but people just look at the fact that they just wanted to feel good for John Cena's last match, not thinking about the fact that Gunther lost to Jey Uso, and if he would have lost to John Cena, it would have damaged something in his character. And people don't look at Gunther needed the victory more than John Cena needed the victory, because John Cena, again, was going out. John Cena won the World Heavyweight Championship. He won Eliminations Chamber, and he won an Intercontinental Championship in his last run. What else is there for John Cena to do? Did he really need to beat Brock Lesnar at WrestlePalooza? Nope, he didn't need to. Did he even really need to beat Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental Championship? No, he didn't. Did he need to beat Cody for the World Heavyweight Championship? John Cena didn't necessarily need to beat Cody for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 41, but it was the right decision to have heel Cena beat Cody Rhodes because Cody Rhodes' World Championship was growing a bit stale. What do you guys think about all these points that I bring up in regards to Triple H's booking and fans being angry at him? And are you guys still frustrated and mad at Triple H? You guys have Carmelo Hayes as United States champion now. We can celebrate. Raw this week was actually pretty good, and SmackDown is a good show. So, are you guys still frustrated with Triple H's booking, or do you guys see that Triple H is trying to give us a great show? Do some of you fans see that? Or do some of you fans not see that? Do some of you fans still believe, after all this information I pulled up about Triple H booking African American talent to win championship gold, do you guys feel that his story arc with Booker T has something to do with his booking of African American talent? Do you guys believe that? Do you guys think that's true? Or do you guys still believe in the clickbait, salacious videos that keep pulling up this nonsense to try and prove a point that is not at least in the least bit valid, even though Booker T said it was a story? So let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think in the comment section below? Are you guys still angry fans? Do you guys have hope for Triple H's booking going into 2026? Or do you guys still feel like it's going to be downhill from here? Me, personally, I think it's only going to go up, and I think we're going to get great matches and great booking. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.